Well, good morning and welcome once again to Elevenses. I'm Kevin Williams of Survival Skills Rider Training. I'll be taking you through the next 30 minutes or so with some topical news, some occasionally controversial views too, and some advice on better biking generally. What have we got for you on today's show? A fairly packed order book. We'll be looking at a Ukrainian e-bike and how, if you purchase it, you can support their military. A motorcycle crash has sparked an Italian forest fire, and the Dutch have shut down a illegal street race and seized motorcycles. Paper is set to replace plastic on the Cake e-bikes. CFMoto, the Chinese manufacturer, are launching a rather upmarket looking 450 sports twin. There's a safety recall on Harley Davidsons after, wait for it, a sticker came unstuck. And finally, today's talking point, we'll look at advertising that is too good to be true and perpetual motion. So we've got quite a lot to keep you going today. We've got Paul, Sue and Nicole looking in. Good morning to you all. Nice to see you here. I'm just trying to get my notes up on the other screen, but for some reason they are not coming up. I'm having to switch from one screen to another. So excuse me if I look away from time to time. I do try to keep the notes actually on the screen where I'm actually looking. Kevin's also looked in as well this morning. So good morning to you, Kevin. Right. Okay. So what was it? The first thing I wanted to talk about. Well, because I haven't got that story. Yeah, first thing, apology and a bit of an announcement at the same time. Now, over the last couple of years, as you probably know, I've been working quite hard to put my Facebook posts up onto Coffee. When we all got locked down in 2020, it seemed like a project to keep me busy. So all the skills on Saturday and tips on Tuesday posts have been, which I've been writing on Facebook, I've been shifting them over to my Coffee page with an index, which helps you find the posts in each year. Now, since I started using Facebook in 2013, there's actually a pretty big back catalogue of these articles, and on Facebook it's essentially unsearchable. So the idea of putting an archive together with an index, at least breaks everything down into years, did make some kind of sense. So over the last 2 years, I have actually managed to move most of the articles. I've actually done everything from 2014 to 2019 inclusive. Those articles were often rewritten and updated. 2021's articles were actually dual posted, as are 2022's. So the missing year is 2020. And at the beginning of this year, I decided it was time to get those articles actually moved over to Coffee. As it happens, I only managed to get, I think it was 3 done until yesterday, when I had a bit of an unexpectedly free morning. So I cracked on with that and ended up putting in all the posts up till the end of May. So just over 4 months worth of posts. Unfortunately, that ran to 37 articles, which was a good sort of boost to the Coffee page. But there's just one issue. If you're one of those people who signed up for email alerts every time there is a new article goes up, you'll know all about the fact there were 37 articles, because you got sent 37 different emails, unfortunately, by the system. Unfortunately, I have no control over that. I was never intending to spam your inbox, of course. But unfortunately, I cannot actually put those articles up on screen without sending you that email. So many apologies for that. The obvious answer would be a 1 day a week, or sort of once a day setting, either for me to send those automated emails out or for you to receive the automated emails. But so I've actually put a feature request into the program, so that with a bit of luck, hopefully they will get onto that and they will update that at a certain point, and we will have some improved communications, because quite frankly, that's far too many emails for a day. So I do apologize for that. Okay, the good news, or I suppose bad news in some ways, I'm now up to the end of May 2020, so I've only got 7 months more posts to go up. And then the archive will actually be complete with those 2 long-running series. There'll only be, from that point on, new items as I write them going up on Coffee. But I will actually be trawling the back catalogue for some of the more specialist articles, and they will also go up at intervals. But hopefully you won't be hit with nearly 40 emails in a single day. So I do apologize for that. Right, okay, so we also have Paul looking in. Good to see you, Paul. Didn't spot you there. And Martin is looking in from, is it sunny out there where you are in Mongolia, Martin? Good morning. Right, okay, so the next item hasn't appeared in my list of what I'm talking about today. Yeah. Sorry, I should have a synchronization system working between the 2 computers. So I'll have to come back to the first story at a later date, next show. But I'll start with the story from the Apennines. It's a lovely part of Italy. As you probably know, it's a sort of forested area in the mountains. Unfortunately, a collision near Parma, the city of Parma, caused a large forest fire earlier this week. Apparently what happened, details are a little bit scanty, but there was a collision involving a motorcycle and a car, and the bike subsequently burst into flames. Now, the rider was taken to hospital by air ambulance and remains in a serious condition in hospital in Parma. The rider's passenger was also hospitalized as a result of the crash. The driver doesn't seem to have been hurt, but when the bike caught fire, it sparked a sort of an undergrowth fire, which actually spread into the adjacent pine forest. And that's apparently drier than usual at this time of the year due to an ongoing drought. And no less than 10 fire appliances had to be brought to the scene to control the blaze, which actually destroyed over 3 hectares of forest before the blaze was actually brought under control. That does actually seem to be quite a good time to remind you that the next of my presentations is the science of being seen. And I just haven't set this up because I was trying to get the text to show, but hopefully that is now up on screen. Science of being seen, as you probably know, it's a presentation about the Smidsey collision, and the next one is going out on Wednesday, the 6th of April, 8 p.m. It's a live show. It's the full presentation of Science of Being Seen. So basically, it looks at the visual perception issues that face drivers when they are looking for motorcycles, which explains why sometimes they fail to spot them. It looks at the camouflage factors, which make motorcycles more difficult to see in a stream of traffic than other vehicles. And it concludes with some very practical advice on how you can compensate for these problems by using effective lighting and also proactive riding. So if you want to find out more about the issue, the Science of Being Seen was actually featured on the Devitz website fairly recently. You can find it over there if you go do a search. You'll see what you need to look for is the motorcycle features, and then you should find the Science of Being Seen link. That was something else I meant to get up for you today. Was the full link to the show, but because of my little technical problem getting the synchronized data over, I've failed to do that. So do go over there and have a look at the Devit site if you want to find out more about Science of Being Seen. And if you're happy to join without seeing it, then as I said, it's going out Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. live. The link is available in the text to this show. Martin says, yes, mostly sunny every day in Mongolia. Excellent. Kevin says about the archive, so many great articles. I hope my responses have not caused you notification meltdown. Not yet, Kevin. I did notice there was a backlog of things to read this morning, but I haven't had time to get around to that yet. But trust me, I do read everything you write, and I do reply to the ones that seem to me to need a reply. So that's the Facebook archive on Coffee. Right, so where were we? Yeah, tickets for the sites being seen, £5. If you do buy a ticket, the proceeds go back into keeping uh, the thing up to date, the presentation up to date. If you can't make it online, by the way, the stream is available for 72 hours, so you don't actually have to turn up on the dot. And you get a chance to pose questions at the end of the comment stream. So for that reason, I do keep the number of seats down to 30 rather. I've got about 10 or 12 seats sold at the moment, so there are plenty left. So do come along if you haven't seen Science of Being Seen before. Right, so all right, hopefully I'm getting somewhere up to date with what I was talking about. The New Zealand, the start again. The street race in the Netherlands. Now the picture isn't clicking over. There it is. That's done now. Technical hitch. I do need a producer. I need a handy volunteer to do all the button clicking while I just do the talking. What happened here? Well, the police have reacted to an illegal street race by issuing 30 fines, seizing 13 motorcycles and a quad bike. The locals have complained repeatedly about the noise being caused by these races, which seem to be a regular event in a place called Nord Brabant. The illegal race has been taking place for some time. Police have been warning riders against attending the event. It's been taking place on an industrial estate near a village called Zevenbergschen Hoek. And they stepped in when the riders and around 150 cars turned up for another race just a few days ago. So what are they going to do about it? Well, they're going to make fairly serious steps. They're going to put fences up apparently around the venue to prevent further races being organised. And the local mayor said, we're talking about the noise for people living nearby and very dangerous traffic situations. It has to stop, and that's why we're taking action today. Right, okay, so just a reminder, you are watching Survival Skills here and my Elevenses show. If you want to make sure that you catch it, it goes out Wednesdays and Sundays, almost always live, occasionally recorded, 11 o'clock. If you can't get it live, the best way to follow it up is on my YouTube channel, which is Survival Skills UK, with that all-important UK on the end. If you don't put that on, you'll get taken off to somebody sharpening Boy Scouts with horses' hooves or something. Right, okay, so what else have we got in the news? I've talked about the Swedish electric bike manufacturer Cake a number of times over the last few months, and they are producing a range of innovative electric bikes. They are modular, which basically means you can bolt on different components, and they're really aimed at working riders. So they come with things like tool trays. So they're not the most stylish looking machines, but they do serve a function. The company's been pushing their green credentials quite heavily, and one of the things they have done is they've supplied to game wardens in Africa bikes for silent anti-poaching patrols. One of the problems of using an internal combustion engine, of course, is that something like the African bush, you can hear it coming from a mile away, but the electric bikes allow them to actually get close to poachers. So they have a big green reputation that they want to bolster, and one of the ways that doing this is by looking at the possibility of replacing plastics with paper on their machines. Now, the company has actually teamed up with a business called Paper Shell. They're a startup, and they construct components using what they call or describe as a natural fiber composite, which they say involves building paper back into a more resistant version of wood. I'm not entirely sure that explanation didn't get lost in translation, because it didn't seem to make an awful lot of sense, but basically their cellulose fiber composite is stronger than plastic, according to their claims. Now, cellulose, as you probably know, is the sort of the woody material that is actually found in trees and woody shrubs, and Paper Shell's composite uses cellulose, and it's said to be weather resistant, fire resistant, UV resistant, stretch, and impact resistant. So pretty tough material. as you probably know, wood itself is quite strong, so it was no big surprise if you use a cellulose-based product, then no big surprise you can't get a strong material out of it. Now, of course, the big news is that compared with other materials, it has a low carbon footprint, and they've actually calculated that for a kilogram of their cellulose composite, the production process actually emits 0.065 kilograms of CO2. And just to give you an idea how sort of green this is, they say that if you create a kilogram of plastic, the figure is 4.95 kilograms, although I would have thought that it would depend on the kind of plastic you're producing. And fiberglass, they say, creates a massive 25 kilograms of CO2 emissions per kilogram of material. So fiberglass really doesn't need to be a very friendly product. Now, right now, there are no specifics of when this product might be used or what parts of the bike it may be used to replace, but currently Cake are evaluating the material to see what they can do with it. And their plan is, they hope, to replace plastics entirely. Now, of course, if you know a bit of history, you'll know this isn't actually an entirely new idea. We've had products like hardboard, for example, around for decades, and basically that is a sort of a cellulose composite. And interestingly, Soviet era cars often used a paper composite for dashboards and other interior trim. Obviously, those parts of the car didn't get wet, so the motorcycle does produce something of a challenge for you. Right, okay, so don't forget, you are tuned to Elevenses. I'm Kevin Williams of Survival Skills Rider Training. Oh, I've already gone live, haven't I? I don't know why I've clicked on that one. If you do enjoy the show, you can pop over to my coffee page. There's the link. I did talk about it a little bit earlier, but if you want to go and find some of those articles, that is the place to go. And just click the posts tab on the page and you'll be taken straight to all the new articles. Right, okay, so ULEZ, you may recall that the ULEZ zone has just been extended in London outwards to encompass every London borough, which more or less puts it out towards the M25. Not quite perfect synchrony, but it's out to that kind of distance. Now, the problem is, of course, that's trapped a lot of motorcyclists and drivers inside the zone, or possibly just outside the zone where they want to go in and out with non-compliant vehicles. So just have a quick look at that motorcycle. You'll probably recognize that as an Africa Twin. It's one of the 750cc bikes. It's one of the later models. Now, it just so happens that a buddy of mine who lives down in South London has one of these very machines. Now, the bike was built between late 90s, and I think it was the last model year was 2003, and I think his is actually just before the turn of the century, so 20 something years old, but still a perfectly functional motorcycle. So not surprisingly, he's not very happy to discover that he can't ride it into the ULEZ zone without paying a fairly hefty bill. But fortunately, what he found was that online, Honda have a simple form for applying for a certificate of compliance. And that basically gives the, certificate of conformity, which effectively gives you the emissions for that particular vehicle. And if the bike turns out to be under the ULEZ limit, you can then send that off to the TfL to apply for a one-off exemption to the charge. Now, the link I had, of course, is on the piece of the document that hasn't actually synchronized over, so I'll put it up later. But basically, what Nick did was he popped the details into the form. You need to supply your name and address. You also need to supply the VIN number for the bike, which is on your V11 logbook, of course. And then you sit back and wait. And about 10 days later, he said the necessary certificate actually dropped through the letterbox. And it turns out that the Africa Twin, that particular model, which is not automatically compliant because it's too old, actually does fit the requirements. It is just under the ULEZ limit, and so it's ULEZ compliant. So he's now pretty chuffed about that. He sent it off to TfL. Now he's waiting to get his update that his vehicle is now seen as compliant. So if you have a Honda, if you live in the ULEZ zone, that is how you can check your bike and see whether it is actually suitable emissions level to get free access to the ULEZ zone. And I will put that link up at the end of the show. Right, so that's the Africa Twin. We'll have a look at another motorcycle. This one here is another bike from CFMoto. Now, over the last 2 years or so, we've seen what started as a trickle of Chinese motorcycles actually turn into a veritable flood of actually pretty good looking and well spec'd bikes. Now, this one's again from CFMoto. Right now, the bike is only confirmed for China. It's not actually on sale yet, and it's not actually been officially revealed, but it has been apparently homologated. And it is a 450 twin, and it would seem a perfect fit for the Euro 35 kilowatt, 47 horsepower A2 license. So I dare say we're likely to see it over here at some point. Now, the bike does bear some similarities to a concept model that appeared last year, but it has been some of the wilder styling ideas have been ditched. For example, the concept had a single-sided swinging arm, and it also had carbon fiber bodywork. They've both disappeared. And some of the more expensive components, it had Öhlins suspension, for example, they also appear to have been shed for more wallet-friendly options. But you still get winglets on the fairing, which of course is an all-important styling item. Absolutely vital on a machine with a top speed that's probably going to be around 115 miles per hour. Now, the bike is pushed along by a 449cc twin. It's claimed, or seems to be, a completely new motor. It's claimed 50 odd horsepower. So as I said, it will almost certainly come limited down to 47 for the UK market. But it does put it into a fairly hotly contested market segment. And the most obvious competitor, of course, would be the Honda 500 twin range. But interestingly, that CFMoto, with its full fairing, is actually lighter than the equivalent faired CBR 500R model. The Chinese machine is actually stated to be just under 170 kilograms ready to roll, which makes it just over 20 kilos, around 50 pounds, lighter than the Honda, which is built in Thailand. That is a fairly remarkable weight, actually. The original GS 500E, the naked one, was down around about that kind of weight, which made it a lovely light bike to flick around. It's still one of my favorite bikes. I know it's got a bad rep, the GS 500, but I had a couple of early ones and I really liked them. But the CFMoto there manages to get its weight down without substituting an alloy frame for a steel one. It has a budget steel frame, which is cheaper, but usually a lot heavier. Anything else that's used to shed weight? Well, it's only got a single disc up front, but it is a big chunky single disc, and frankly I never had any trouble doing stoppies on my GS 500s with a single disc. The only time they ever really suffered was on prolonged heavy braking. So down mountains they tended to overheat a bit, but generally speaking, that was a very, very rare event. The bike has got double-sided swinging arm instead of the single-sided on the concept bike, and the high-level exhaust has been substituted for a standard low-level one. Now, interestingly, and this is where there are some interesting questions to be asked, the bike could be showing us a brand new KTM motor. Now, you'll recall that CFMoto and KTM have a serious tie-up. In fact, CFMoto is not just rebadging outdated KTM motors, they are actually building now complete bikes and engines on behalf of KTM. The 790 and the 890 Duke and Adventure models, for example. The 790 engine turns up in CFMoto's own 800 MT adventure bike. So it would be no great shock if this engine did appear in a lightweight KTM. There have been rumours for some time about a 490 twin slotting in to the middle of the KTM range, where they kind of lack a bike between the singles and the bigger twins. So this bike could just possibly be the one that everybody is expecting. Yeah, we've got a few comments here. Honda, Kevin Paul says Honda only issue the certificates of conformity for bikes made after 2001. You're absolutely right. I forgot to put that in. That's something that Nick said as well. So his bike must have been either just after the 2001. Thanks for that. Yeah, right. So where were we? Next story, weren't we? Which is over on the other screen, which is confusing the heck out of me this morning because it hasn't synced across. Now, safety. We talk about safety. I talk about safety a lot, but sometimes it really does seem that there is some madness going on. And you don't have to look further than an imminent recall on some US Harley Davidson Sportsters. Now, apparently around 4,000 of these bikes are affected. And the reason that they're being recalled is a fault in the braking system. But it's not the braking system as you and I would know it. It's not a faulty hose. It's not a faulty master cylinder. It's not a faulty caliper. It's actually a sticker. Yep, it's a sticker. The brake fluid warning label may detach from the brake fluid reservoir cap. Yep, that's it. And basically, if this occurs, then according to the National Highways Transport Safety Administration, the NHTSA, the motorcycles would fail to comply with the requirements of Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standard number 122, motorcycle brake systems. And that is what has triggered this recall. And the official explanation is that the absence of the brake fluid warning statement on the reservoir cover may lead to an improper maintenance procedure if the owner does not have access to or does not consult the owner's manual, which contains the brake fluid specification. So basically, it's that little sticker that tells you to use .5 liquid that's on the reservoir cap. Now, I did actually check that this wasn't a premature April Fool, but in fact it does appear to be a real event. There is the recall letter. Harley Davidson will be replacing these labels. They'll be mailing them out to owners of the 2021-2022 Sportster range free of charge. Alternatively, if you don't feel confident to fit your own sticker to your reservoir cap, you can take your bike into a Harley dealer who will inspect your label and then replace it if necessary, free of charge. Absolute madness, in my opinion. All right, rather more seriously though, a couple of other recalls have gone out. 2022 Triumph Tridents. Some of those apparently have a dodgy side stand. Apparently it's been made out of weaker than specified material, and it is bending when the bike is being parked on it, possibly when the owner actually sits on the bike at the same time. It's not exactly reassuring about the quality control though, is it? And some 2020 and 2022 MT-09s apparently have a software glitch, which is rather more serious. And this is causing stalling and an engine fault to be displayed on the dash. Now, personally, having dropped a motorcycle when turning right across an oncoming traffic stream and ended up laying on my side in front of a car which had to stop rather abruptly. That was one of my old single-cylinder Hondas, which tended to do that when they coughed. They just stopped. I'd certainly advise that if you've got one of those bikes, that you get that sorted out as a matter of priority. Right, okay, so don't forget, if you do have comments, questions on anything that I talk about on these shows, I do like to hear them, and it's always entertaining to find out what people think. Now, moving on to the final item for the day, I would give you again a link. I'll do it later because I can't do it easily at the moment. But in last week's show, I happened to look at a slip-on can for the Yamaha XJ6. You may recall this particular item. There it is. I'll just pop that up on screen. That's the XJ6. Now, I just happen to own one of these, of course, and I was intrigued to see that the material that comes with the the can, you get a PDF with a dyno chart, and what it claims to show is that you get a power increase across the rev range. Um, and that's rather interestingly to me, because the silencer actually doesn't replace any component of the exhaust system. The only thing that you have to remove is the trim, a chrome sort of end piece that where the exit from the underslung exhaust actually is on this bike, and then you bolt the silencer onto the link pipe. So you don't actually do anything at all to the existing exhaust system. That's all left completely intact. So the silencer is actually just a cosmetic piece of metal which bolts onto the side of the bike. So since it doesn't replace any of the components of the exhaust, it's hard to see how just adding another sort of 18 inches or so of metal to the end of the pipe could actually do anything to improve the power output of the motorcycle. My conclusion was that basically the only thing it would do is improve weight, and that if they did manage to get a genuine power output increase, my guess is that they probably serviced the bike. So as it happens, at much the same time, I was watching a video on the Bennett's social pages, and it was on the performance of single layer and double layer motorcycle jeans. Now, having got some of these double layer jeans myself, they are quite heavy, quite bulky. They can be a bit warm in hot weather. So I was quite interested to see how single layer jeans stacked up in the video. So I watched it. Now, the YouTube info at the beginning of the video, if you can scroll down and have a look to see what they say, it says there's been a lot of hype about single layer jeans recently. They're lighter and cooler than motorbike pants lined with Kevlar or other aramids, but are they really as safe? Is it true that some single layer jeans are more abrasion resistant than leather? Who should you trust? Now, it's a very good question, because if you only have the advertising to go on, you might be forgiven for believing that the manufacturers present you with genuine information, with data that they have themselves obtained. But the video is well worth watching, because it reveals some of the advertising tricks is a bit of a strong word, shall we say techniques, which can result in the unwary making poor decisions. For starters, the video actually talks about something called official CE test slide time. Um, the that's part of the advertising, and they'd explain that in the video that there is no such thing as an official CE slide time test. It simply doesn't exist. Now, when queried on this, the manufacturer came back and said what they do is they submit the samples of the garments to an official testing house, and they get them independently tested, and they ask for this data, and the data comes back to them, and that's where they get their slide times from. But when actually asked for the report from the testing house, they apparently declined to produce the paperwork. So make of that what you will. Now, one source that I will trust for information is a chap called Dr. Chris Hurren. He's from Deakin University in Australia, and he is the man, or one of the people behind the MotoCap clothing rating system from Australia and New Zealand. They've actually just branched out into helmet testing too, which is something I will cover in another show. But for the moment, I worked with Chris in New Zealand myself on the Shiny Side Up projects in 2018 and 2019. And I also interviewed him here on this channel back in 2020 in one of the sort of an Elevenses special. I'll actually give you the link to that as well later on. And he contributes to this video from Bennett's too. Now, the video throws up plenty of questions about the advertising, and it is really well worth watching. I'd certainly sit yourself down, give yourself half an hour, and watch the Bennett's video. It is quite informative, and I have to say that the work that they're doing over there to debunk some of the the myths about bike clothing, and also to tackle the problem of illegally sold non-conforming clothing is well worth supporting. So do pop over there and have a look at it. Right, okay. The final thing I just wanted to come up with was another link, which I can't give you at the moment, but if the clothing testing is a real problem, the website I found, and again, I'll put the link up in a minute. I had to wonder whether it was an April Fool's joke, but in fact, it seems not. Basically, what it says to start with is we, the people of Earth, are having a huge problem of pollution, which is getting worse day by day, and we do not give a universal, practical solution for the same. Now, considering the situation, Earth needs to be saved, but that doesn't mean we have to declare a war or fight with the other people or something like that. We have to fight scientifically and logically against the problem. Now, you probably noticed that the language there being used isn't exactly the most coherent. I did make some allowances because the site is based in India, but I read on. And according to the new website, the product that they are promoting is a magnetic flywheel, and they call it a table turner. Presumably, they mean a game changer. Anyway, it's available to be fitted to a range of vehicles, everything from a bicycle through a motorcycle, of course, to a tractor. But naturally, I was interested in the suitable for the wide range of scooters and other powered two-wheeled vehicles, including electric and petrol item. So here it is. If I can get the picture up again, just get this done. So bear with me. There we are. So can you see it's that kind of orange thing on the wheel there? And you can see the name of the product there, and you can see there's some kind of weird plastic looking thing, which is apparently a metal magnetic flywheel. And apparently this is how it works. When this magnetic flywheel is attached to the vehicle's wheels, it reduces load capacity and improves performance, resulting in higher mileage efficiency. Improved mileage efficiency leads to less fuel consumption, which results in lower carbon emissions, making this invention environmentally friendly. And on top of that, it apparently increases torque and top speed. It allows faster acceleration and improves your maintenance costs as well. All while you're saving time on your commuting and your traveling. It's allegedly been tested under extreme environmental conditions, and the website shows what's purported to be a patent. Now, if you're still in any doubt at all, this does appear to be an Indian version of the old perpetual motion machine. Website's half finished. It's got various placeholder photos all over it, and my favorite is it's got bits of lorem ipsum text left behind by the builder. I'll post up the link to it in a moment, but basically I think you can safely say that that is a scam. I hope not too many people are taken in by it. Right, that brings us pretty much to the end of the show today. Don't forget, we have the next talk is survival skills, the science of being seen. In May, I'll be talking about overtaking, so just over a month's time, and how to make it out of the other side of an overtake safely. We also have the first of the mini group rides, which will be from St Albans up and over the Chilterns. Beautiful ride. Do come and join me. That is in a few weeks' time. I did have the date, April 23rd, I think it is, and 10 a.m. So do come along to enjoy me on that if you possibly can. April, I've got April the 3rd there. Obviously not April the 3rd because that's today. Must be the 23rd. Right. Okay. So that's it. I'll be back with the next show, slightly more organized, I hope. I don't know why the synchronizations failed this morning. Very annoying. A couple of comments just to finish off with. Nick says, I saw the Bennett's videos, but the tests weren't so conclusive and no brands were named, maybe for a future edition. Yeah, I suppose that they have to be a little bit careful for litigation purposes, but they kind of allow you to draw your own conclusions. And Paul, our resident clothing expert, of course, says there's a lot more information in the comments, Nick, including where I point out the Moto Caps results support John Milbeck's finding in the video. Thank you for that, Paul. Next show, Wednesday, as I say, and on Sunday, I've got something a little bit interesting for you. I'll be devoting a big chunk of the show to destruction testing a pair of cheap motorcycle boots that I bought recently. Inadvertently, I thought they were the same pair as the pair that I actually own already. They turned out not to be. They turned out to be rather different. And since I was required to pay a hefty return postage thing, I thought I'd actually rip the things to pieces and see how they were built. So I'll be sharing my findings with you next week on Sunday. So do look back in on Wednesday for the next show, and then Sunday we have some boot destruction tests. I'm sure you're also going to be finding that interesting. Right, okay, so that's it for today. If you are out there on the bike, enjoy your ride, but do stay shiny side up and stay warm, because it's pretty damn chilly out there at the moment. So this is Kevin Williams from Survival Skills saying thanks for watching, and hopefully see you for the next show.